you lovely kings, queens, and in-betweens, my name is Elaine, and today I'm going to show you all how to make a killer Strategist the Strategist Commander deck for roughly $60. Strategist the Strategist is a Bant commander. He's a legendary Elder Dragon who costs 1 green, 1 white, 1 blue, and 1 colorless mana to cast. He has both flying and vigilance. Also, whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. He's got 3 power and 5 toughness. This deck depends almost entirely on Strategist's secondary ability. You want to stack the field with defenders so you can draw cards and get as much onto the field as quickly as possible, and suddenly turn those defenders to attack mode in order to destroy your enemies. During your wait, you want to cast spells that will keep your enemy's board from developing, hinder if not entirely halt their ability to attack you, and more. More about this a little later. Since walls and gates are often lower cost in terms of mana as well as price in the real world, it's easy to stack your deck with tons of both and get them out onto the field fairly quickly. So you have blockers available while you wait until you have enough mana to get Strategist out onto the field. I've included a fair mixture of each color available to Strategist in this deck, not only to help counteract anyone who may have protection or some other pesky ability, but in case I struggle to draw a specific land type. I've also included walls and gates with numerous different abilities to help counteract the things my opponents may be casting and keep them on their toes. Some more vanilla examples include Angelic Wall and Hover Barrier, which are both flying defenders, Riptide Turtle, a defender with flash, and Wall of Denial, which is a defender with both flying and shroud. Other defenders, such as Wall of Blossoms, Jungle Barrier, and Carven Caryatid, allow you to draw a card when it enters the battlefield. This is naturally fairly helpful, as with more cards in hand comes the potential for additional castings each turn. Other defenders help you to ramp and build up your field. Examples include Axebane Guardian, which has a tap ability that allows you to add X mana in any combination of colors, where X is the number of creatures you control with Defender, and Overgrown Battlement, which has a tap ability that allows you to add a green mana for each creature you control with Defender. I've included a few walls that allow you to recover life as well, since you can never have too much of that. Examples include Wall of Essence, which allows you to gain that much life whenever it is dealt damage, and Perimeter Captain, which whenever a creature you control with Defender blocks, you may gain 2 life. There are also creatures and enchantments that buff your creatures. Examples include Stalwart Shield Bearers, which gives other defenders you control +0/+2, and Zopendrill, Hunger Dominus and Unnatural Growth, which both, at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. With this powerful buff, it instantly becomes much easier to wipe out your enemies. There are also cards which make it impossible for your apparent weaklings to be blocked. Examples include Suspicious Bookcase, which has a 3-tap ability that keeps a target creature from being blocked, and Tetsuku Umezawa, Fugitive, which makes it so creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. This is absolutely amazing since the vast majority of your creatures fall into this category, making it impossible for them to be blocked until she is removed. Other notable mentions include Towering Titan, a giant who enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total toughness of other creatures you control. She also has the ability to give all creatures trample until end of turn if you sacrifice a creature with Defender. This is amazing not only because she becomes a big scary beastie because of the composition of this deck and how easy it tends to be to get lots of defenders onto the field, but because she can give them trample with a small sacrifice, making it easy for you to decimate your opponents with a single attack phase. Wall of Stolen Identity is also a personal favorite because you may have Wall of Stolen Identity enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a wall in addition to its other types and has Defender. When you do, tap the copied creature and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Wall of Stolen Identity. I love casting this on an opponent's commander when they get it onto the field since it tends to cripple their deck's functionality, making it far easier for me to get ahead. Lastly, there's Weathered Sentinels. It has Defender, Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. Weathered Sentinels can attack players who attacked you during their last turn as though it didn't have Defender, and whenever Weathered Sentinels attacks, it gets +3/+3 and gains indestructible until end of turn. I love this card not only because of all its keywords, but because it becomes a nearly indestructible attacker whenever it goes out into the field, making it easy to deal damage to your opponent's health and whittle down their field. I've included a few cards in this deck which interact with your opponents. There's the classic Counterspell, as well as Meekstone, which makes it so creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap steps. This often makes it impossible for your enemies to attack you until Meekstone is removed from the field. Meanwhile, each sorcery included in this deck either serves as a board wipe or a way of returning wiped creatures to your hand. Dusk Dawn is a card you can use in either fashion. Dusk destroys all creatures with power 3 or greater, while Dawn returns all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Do not fear for your hand size here. I included a Reliquary Tower. Expel the Interlopers allows you to choose a number between 0 and 10. Destroy all creatures with power greater than or equal to the chosen number. And Slaughter the Strong forces each player to choose any number of creatures they control with total power 4 or less. Then sacrifice all other creatures they control. This usually probably isn't a problem for you or much of a problem since most of your creatures lack power and the rest tend to have extremely low power. But it is probably going to be a problem for everyone else at the table unless they are playing a similar deck. Now, a lot of you may be worrying, thinking about how this deck simply cannot function unless Arcades is on the field, as you have so few attackers with most of your creature cards being defenders. Do not fear, for I have included Plan B, C, and D in case he gets killed or countered so much he's simply too expensive to cast. The first is Walking Bulwark, which has a 2 colorless mana paid ability. Until end of turn, target creature with Defender gains haste, can attack as though it didn't have Defender. It assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Activate only as a sorcery. Second is Assault Formation. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. If you pay 1 green, target creature with Defender can attack this turn as though it didn't have Defender. If you pay 2 green, creatures you control get +0/+1 until end of turn. And High Alert, which makes it so each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender. It also has a paid 1 white, 1 blue, and 2 colorless mana ability, which allows you to untap a target creature, which is wonderful as it allows you to open up blockers for any counterattacks made by opponents during their turns. In the interest of time, I won't mention all of the other cards in this deck, which synergize with Arcades to destroy your enemies. Instead, I'll include a full deck list down below in the description so you can see what this deck has to offer for yourself. And there you have it, my deck tech for Arcades the Strategist. What did you think of my deck tech? Are you interested in Arcades or do you have an Arcades deck already? What do you think of decks that revolve around defenders and making them big, scary attackers? Let me know down below in the comments. I always like to know what you kings, queens, and in-betweens think. And if you like what you saw here today, please smash that like button until it's blue. Subscribe, ring that bell so you'll always know what's up, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye guys!
Hi, Tisha Valenza, aka Poison Ivy, and you've just been watching King's Entertainment Reviews. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.